We might be witnessing right now the greatest technological disruption we've ever seen in the energy space. That's a bold claim. We're going to be talking today about advanced nuclear fission technology. Fast fission, the powerhouse you see on screen here, this beautiful, sleek looking design, looks like something straight out of the future, out of those crazy sci-fi movies. This right here is a mini nuclear reactor. But let's be honest, you could have went on any AI image generator and rendered an image like this in about 5 to 10 minutes. So the real question is this technology proven? Is it just a pipe dream? Is it all hype? This company, Oklo, that we're going to be talking today, has zero revenue. They don't have a product, they haven't made a sale, just a prototype and a proof of concept of some really, really cool looking building. Does it really deserve a market cap of $20 billion? Who are their customers? Who's interested in their products? What does the market look like? And how do they differentiate themselves from these big, ugly nuclear reactors that we see today? The conventional nuclear fission reactors. How is Trump helping this potential pipe dream come to reality? And why is this so important to, you guessed it, pretty much, I guess, the only thing that matters right now? AI spending, and the rest of the world. To you, to other industries, in how this massive US United Kingdom agreement, the tech prosperity deal, how this might have just changed everything. We have a lot to cover today, so let's get right into it. First things first, per usual, we need to build a little bit of context to answer all these various questions. First and foremost, we all know at this point, AI spending is everywhere. Today we have headlines telling us that AI spending is making up more GDP growth than consumer spending. No matter how absurd that might sound, that's the reality of the world that we live in today. And so if you don't pay attention to this stuff, you're just simply going to fall behind. The size of the artificial intelligence market is set to absolutely balloon. The demand for AI right now is off the charts. Spending on artificial intelligence, data centers, chips, whatever infrastructure you want, it's blowing up. It's undeniable. Will the projections be right? We don't know. We're just working with the numbers we have today. The electricity demand for data centers alone, supporting the AI revolution, is set to consume more electricity than basically every country on the planet. It would rank 4th on the list of countries by electricity demand, forecasted to 2030. But the greatest part about what we're discussing today, right now, is that whether you want to believe in the AI growth story or not, whether you believe in OpenAI and their ability to provide profits over the long run, because they're burning billions of dollars right now, that doesn't matter. Because no matter what happens with AI, no matter what happens with AI spending, the world needs more energy. The world needs electricity to power everything. And that's exactly what we see in the trend. Electricity demand is set to rise by 3.3% in 2025, 3.7% in 2026, well above and nearly double a decade of just about 2.6% growth. So clearly this theme of electrification isn't just with AI spending, right? You and I need it to power our homes, power basically everything we use, and the population is only growing, to supercharge the next generation of technology, quantum computing, which today is getting all sorts of hype, the electrification, the digitization of basically every industry out there. We see with the EV industry and what Elon Musk and Tesla are doing in particular, EV charging stations are popping up just about everywhere. The point is, no matter which way you look, we need electricity. And as you can see, that trend is quite clear. During the years of the good old dot-com bubble, when all those internet companies were building out their infrastructure and needed more electricity to build out those traditional servers and build out additional compute, we're seeing the same exact thing starting to happen today. All those AI companies are relying on AI data infrastructure to be built out, and to use that AI infrastructure, to use all these massive data centers, we need electricity. And how are we going to get all that electricity? Well, I'm glad you asked. Trump knows it, and he's supporting the movement to cleaner energy. Companies all over the place are talking about carbon neutral this, carbon neutral that. The point is, everybody's moving towards this cleaner future, and large companies want to rely on sustainable, reliable, clean sources of energy. We can see the trend of these carbon neutral actions and commitments absolutely skyrocketing amongst Fortune 500 companies. And Trump knows this, so he wants to streamline the process. He signs 4 executive orders purely designed to fast track the nuclear development process. One of them in particular sets a target of quadrupling US nuclear energy capacity to 400 gigawatts by 2050. A bold and lofty goal, but it's a goal nonetheless. It's set in stone, it's written down. And so adapt or die. If you don't adopt this technology now, then you're gonna fall behind and eventually just be outpaced by your competitors. And that is exactly what Oklo is hoping to do. So the thing about Oklo is we talked about conventional nuclear fission reactors. They're proven. They're built out at scale across the world, being used every day right now. Oklo is working with this advanced fission, this fast fission technology, but is it proven? Again, we can say all the things we want. We can have AI generate all the images and renderings we want of these beautiful buildings that look so silky and smooth. But at the end of the day, does the technology work? Is there promise? Is there a proof of concept? And yes, there is. This right here, albeit a much uglier version, is the EBR-2, the experimental breeder reactor. This reactor right here operated successfully for 30 years under United States control from 1964 to 1994. This thing is a dinosaur. This is not meant to point out that it's not only smaller, not only much uglier than the Oklo version today, but no, it's meant to point out the technology, exactly what the name might suggest. A breeder reactor to breed more fuel than it actually consumes. We're talking about recycled nuclear waste, spent nuclear fuel that has already ran its course through our conventional nuclear fission reactors, being used to generate electricity in this beautiful guy. Remember, OG reactors use this big, ugly rock, uranium, which also needs to be enriched to become uranium-235. Uranium-235 is more potent than the naturally occurring uranium that we find in and on the planet, and thus it can be used as nuclear fuel to cause the chain reactions that allow us to generate electricity from nuclear fission. Now, the key here, and the problem that haunts OG nuclear reactors, that haunts the entire nuclear industry, is the problem with nuclear fuel. And the first thing I said at the beginning of the video, this might be the most disruptive technology we've ever seen in the energy space, is because it solves this massive problem in a big, positive way. Like we said, uranium has to be enriched to become uranium-235. And the problem with that is only a few select countries actually have a lot of this nuclear fuel grade uranium enriched capacity. One of the biggest players by a wide margin is Russia. This hints at the goal of full independence from Russian nuclear fuel by end of 2028, the agreement between the US and UK. But that's political. Let's get to the big problem that Oklo hopes to solve, and that's the spent nuclear fuel problem. Now, why the hell do I have a picture of a football field on my screen? Well, take a look at this. A football field is about 100 yards in length, 120 yards including the two end zones. If you covered a football field with all the spent nuclear fuel that exists on the planet today, sitting bottled up somewhere beneath the earth, because it can stay radioactive anywhere between thousands to tens of thousands to millions of years, all of that nuclear fuel makes up this much material. Enough material to cover an entire football field stacked 30 feet tall. Now, if that doesn't do it justice, if that doesn't show you just how big the problem is today with all this radioactive material just sitting beneath Earth's surface, this chart right here shows us the oil reserves that each country holds. All that spent nuclear fuel would be the equivalent of 1.2 trillions of barrels of oil in terms of the energy that it could produce. All this spent nuclear fuel just sitting there, waiting out its radioactive decay for thousands to millions of years, not being used anywhere. Quick peanut break here. And so, coming full circle, Oklo intends to commercialize two products actually. One, their product line Aurora, this beautiful rendering of the mini nuclear fission reactor that we talked about. This guy produces anywhere between 15 to 75 megawatts depending on the model. For perspective, those big ugly nuclear reactors, those things produce on average about 1 gigawatt. The massive reactors are producing anywhere from 10 to 15x what the Aurora model will. And so they're really banking on this idea of small modular reactors that can be built pretty much anywhere with less construction time needed, with less regulatory approval, hopefully, and basically just a quicker turnaround time from when they propose a site to actually have one of these Aurora reactors built to the actual construction to the actual operation. Makes you think these Auroras could pop up just about anywhere and avoid all that red tape that's usually associated with the OG nuclear fission reactor. And two, the other product, the other service that they hope to commercialize is the nuclear waste, the spent nuclear fuel recycling technology. Now, these products really go hand in hand, right? The Aurora reactor doesn't have to rely on this ugly uranium-235. Rather, it can take that used uranium-235, put it through its nuclear recycling facility, and then toss it right back in to the Aurora reactor. You can see just how powerful and how circular this process really is. It comes back to that idea of the EBR, the breeding of fuel. The EBR showed us that you could have a closed loop system that didn't require the continuous supply of nuclear fuel to continue producing energy. Now again, this all sounds great in theory, and the technology is phenomenal, absolutely game-changing. But at the end of the day, they have no revenue, but they have a lot of interested customers. They actually have many agreements, and they have a backlog of 14.1 gigawatts of power. In short, when they eventually do come to market and they actually start building out these Aurora reactors, as well as these nuclear fuel recycling facilities, the idea is they have customers that are already willing to pay for 14.1 gigawatts of power. Equinix, Diamondback Energy, Prometheus Hyperscale, Switch, most all having to do with powering data centers. As you might have suspected, as you might have guessed, in this world of AI spending, everything comes back to AI. But one deal that surprised me that I thought was also interesting, because we just talked about this in one of our recent videos with government contracts, Oklo was selected to provide electricity and heat to the Eielson Air Force Base in Alaska. And this shows two things, right? One, that these nuclear reactors aren't solely tied to the idea of AI data centers, AI infrastructure in general. There's some diversity there. There's some other customers that could and should be interested in this. And two, if the government and government agencies are willing to step in and pay for these products, that's a really good sign for a company to have consistent recurring revenue going forward. We see this with companies all over the place, for the most part in the defense industry. So think your Lockheed Martin, think your Palantir especially. The point is, it's a really good sign to get your first step in the door and get that initial government contract. Usually a tough hurdle to overcome. And if that wasn't good enough, they're actually backed by the Department of Energy in the United States. The Department of Energy actually provided them the site to build out this nuclear fuel recycling facility, and provided them with 5 metric tons, a lot of used spent nuclear fuel. And again, I think this lends itself quite well to what we briefly mentioned at the beginning of the video, that they have no revenue, but they're really not in much debt. They have a current ratio, so their current assets versus their current debt of 71. And that's extremely rare for a company in this position in early stages of growth, spending a lot of their money on research and development. So it shows that they're getting this major backing, right? So they have that going for them, basically zero debt, which again is really rare for a company like this. They have a backlog of data center company and government agency customers. Obviously, the growth in data centers is only going one way. That's up right now. They have a proven technology that we saw demonstrated by the EBR2. And if there was any other reason to doubt or hate on Oklo's ability to perform, this one might be the killer of all doubters, the king of AI spending, of AI preaching to the world. It's the backing of Sam Altman. Now, OpenAI hasn't explicitly backed Oklo in any shape or form, but Sam Altman was a co-founder and now sits on the board of this company. So if we were to speculate, of course, speculation doesn't mean much, but if we were to just throw this out there, that hypothetically, one day when Sam Altman and the many other companies working on the Project Stargate, the biggest data center ever constructed in human history, when perhaps that construction is complete and they need some energy, some electricity to power the millions and millions of GPUs that are going to be running constantly to train and run these AI large language models, perhaps they may rely on the electricity provided by Aurora warehouses. Just a thought. And finally, the good news, and probably the primary reason that Oklo jumped something like 30%, was this tech prosperity deal. Now, this deal mentions a lot of new cutting edge technologies, right? AI, God, I'm sick of hearing that. Quantum computing, and what we're talking about today, nuclear energy. And in short, the US Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and the UK Office for Nuclear Regulation, they both came together and said, hey, we need to get nuclear energy up and running as fast as humanly possible. And so let's try to get the design review time down to within 2 years. Let's try to get the site licensing down to within 1 year. And that's a huge cut in development time, because just recently a nuclear reactor design from, I think it was NuScale, took 41 months to review, just about 3.5 years. They want to cut that down all the way to within 2 years. So you could theoretically be done with both the design review and the site licensing within 2 to 3 years. Now, will that happen? Is this just all talk? I guess we'll see. There's going to have to be a lot of changes made. And that brings up one of the age-old questions, and it should continue to be the age-old question, and the number one priority amongst any company is safety. You can rest assured we're not going to get into the chemistry today, but due to how this advanced fission reactor actually works, even in worst case scenarios, there's not a whole lot of damage that can be done. So again, that's a hurdle that OG nuclear reactors have been trying to get over for years and years, as accidents inevitably just happen with time on a scale especially as large as Chernobyl, for example. That scares the shit out of people, that scares the shit out of lawmakers. But with a design like this, with the worst case scenario being as small and inconsequential as something like an energy outage, regulatory approval should probably be a little quicker. And I will say, at the end of the day, we all know what matters. All the hype can be generated. The stock could go up 1 million bajillion %. We could value Oklo at 20 billion today with zero revenue. But tomorrow, this stock could be worth nothing. The only thing that matters is execution. And they make that clear in their 10Q. It is uncertain when, if at all, we will obtain regulatory approvals for their designs, for their construction, and that's just a risk to keep in mind, right? There is a whole lot of promise. This technology is absolutely game-changing, but at the end of the day, if Oklo's design fails for whatever reason, there's a lot of technical aspects that go into this design, especially when they start building this out at scale. If the hopes and desires don't end up coming to fruition just how they anticipate, then competitors will simply take market share, take over the space of advanced fission reactors, and Oklo will be in a whole lot of trouble. So again, that was complete information overload. I understand that was a lot. This company is extremely interesting, not only from a technological view, but also from an investment perspective. Is it worth the $20 billion price tag? I mean, I don't know, maybe. I mean, the global power generation market alone is valued at over 1 trillion today and projected to be over 2 trillion by 2032. So again, if Oklo and their Aurora facility does become like the golden standard of energy production, big tech companies continue to rely on them for their data center infrastructure build out, consumers start relying on them for electricity. I mean, this company and just the technology in general could just take over. We may be seeing these facilities everywhere. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Now, I hope this justifies the thumbnail of this thing is nuts, because I will say, I mean, this is some crazy stuff that we're talking about. I want to hear your thoughts. Do you think it's a lot of hype? Do you think it's all talk, no walk? Do you think these AI generated images of beautiful looking small modular nuclear reactors, do you think it's still a fantasy and a pipe dream? Or is the science here to stay? And one last thing, if this video was helpful to you in any way to learn about the technology, to use this as information for a potential investment, not financial advice obviously, or to just hear me yap about this, thank you for watching. Please subscribe, it helps me out. And I guess I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Give me some peanuts.